So right now, let's do something about that. Let's get answers together from a different doctor, a doctor who is not only renowned in her field and a member of the National Association of Menopause Society. She's right in the middle of these hormone fluctuations herself. And most importantly, a doctor who is patient and thorough with everyone.
I got really discouraged. And do you think that that is other women's experience, or am I in an isolated one?
I have a feeling this is going to be a really deep conversation. So I'm going to take off this coat because I tend to find that this coat serves as a barrier for us, for most women. The experience that you had, unfortunately, is not an uncommon one. There is very little emphasis on menopausal health. It's very frustrating.
I mean, when you took your coat off, I really had a wow moment. But you're right, it has a professional aspect to it that feels a little doctor-patient rather than human to human, woman to woman.
Two women who are going through menopause.
Are you in peri or?
I am in menopause. I
You're
am
in full menopause.
am fully, happily in the wonderful world of menopause.
What was your menopause journey?
As a whole OBGYN myself was waking up in the middle of the night in sweats, wondering, is the air conditioning turned on? What is happening? Having the menstrual irregularities, and
Yes.
it hit me, lady, you're going through menopause yourself. I'm diagnosing women every single day.
And yet somehow you miss the memo to yourself.
Right over my head.
See, I think that's so liberating to hear because even you had to take some time to identify it for yourself. And I think the worst part really about it is not just the physical uncertainty, it's the mental.
So true. So true. I think what was helpful for me is that I knew the science.
What is the science?
Well, quick little science lesson.
Oh,
so
please.
when you started puberty, you had roughly 400,000 eggs. And each of those eggs was making 3 different hormones: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Every time you have a period, you lose an egg, you lose a little hormone. By the time we make it to perimenopause, that 400,000 is now about 400. So those levels have dropped. What happens during perimenopause is that they begin to shift. And when one shifts, kind of like that game Jenga, remember that game?
Yes.
If you moved one part, the structure became a little more unstable on the other end. So when those hormone levels begin to fall in one area, you have another area that has become affected. When those hormones change in that area, now this area has become affected. And eventually the entire system becomes a bit unstable and sometimes falls apart. That is when we start to begin to experience all of those telltale signs of perimenopause and menopause.
Not only is your body in chaos, but your mind is in chaos. You don't even know what's going on or why, which then makes you feel so confused and lost. So you physically don't feel great and you mentally feel not great.
I think if there is anything that women can take away is the fact that this is a true physiologic process, that it is not in your head. When I start thinking about all the numbers that are involved with the amount of hormones that we had in our bodies 20 years ago, and the fact that we only have a fraction of that amount now, it would make sense that all of our body systems would be affected. So it's not something that you're imagining.
What is something that we could say to ourselves as women when we're in perimenopause? What's a good piece of dialogue we could put in our heads?
All right, the change is happening. Our life being not a storybook, but a chapter book. And as we start moving into perimenopause, it's like, oh, where is the heroine going next?
I love that so much. I can't even take it. Where is the heroine going next? That's so wild. Okay. So I'm in perimenopause. I haven't gone past 6 months without then getting my period again. So is it true that worst case scenario, I'll be in this for another 6-7 years, but it could be another year?
I always like to say that entering this phase of life is not like a light switch going on, it's like a dimmer switch. So we don't just wake up one day in menopause. We actually begin the perimenopausal process about 7 to 10 years before menopause. And that is when we start having menstrual irregularities, but we can't really call it menopause until we've gone 12 full months without a period.
There are some women who need hormones. There are some that don't. How do we know when, who, how, or why? What is the thought on hormone therapy? What's your opinion?
I think for most physicians, that is very simple to just replace what is missing instead of targeting what is the effect of what is missing. Natural solutions can absolutely work. I have seen supplements work tremendously because, again, everyone's hormone levels are a little off. It took me having to go through menopause myself to really understand the import and really the dearth of information that's out there. And there are many resources. I have a PhD as well as a medical degree. I know that there is science